Hi guys, today I'm going to be talking about isomorphic rendering on JAMstack and also how I've got to that point in sort of web development and the full circle that I think it's sort of taking. To start with, sort of current state of web development, I think is quite, developers often can be guilty of sort of adding a lot of bloat when it's not really needed. I mean, a lot of these things can deliver value, but they also sort of put a lot of extra code in that's not needed there. I mean, example, recently I was working on a site and doing off-canvas navigation, and without even thinking about it, I'd included jQuery and the whole of foundation JavaScript, and then sort of realised that all it was doing, well, all it needed to do was add and remove a class. It's sort of a sudden realisation I don't need all that code there and all the work that it's doing just to do something quite simple. This is a stat I found at W3 Techs, apparently that over a quarter of the internet runs on WordPress, which to me is quite a worrying statistic. Just wonder how many of those sites really need to have sort of any sort of CMS, or how many of them need to have all that content dynamically built every request. Is that actually adding any value to the site at all, or is it just there because someone thought it was a quick solution or an easy solution to get to where they wanted? So we go back to where I started with development stuff, started making static websites back a few days ago now, well, a little while ago. It was static HTML, so everything was manually created, all the menus and everything was duplicated across different files to update it in. You had to update it in all the places, apart from if you used a horrible thing of Dreamweaver templates used to sort of manage that, but then you had no version control, so it was lots of files to upload at once. The nice thing back then was that with slow internet speeds and the browsers and devices being slow, I mean, my phone in my pocket is probably faster than a lot of the browsers were, that things were quite optimized, and that there's quite a thought on making sure that things are small footprint and things actually worked fast. But obviously, like I was saying earlier, there was no inclusion, everything was repeated all the time. There was no version control to handle those things. You end up with your version control of files called .latest, .back, .latest or something, so you know which one's been edited, or so you can go back and see. So we moved on to dynamic sites with server-side includes. You change a menu once, you change it in one place. It's brilliant. It's a revelation there, and you could not worry about some things like this. To make things easier again to deliver value to clients is content management systems, which seem brilliant. The client can edit their site, they can dynamically add new pages in, but like I was saying earlier, these things are then having to be done every single time. But things are changing also with the internet speed, so broadband's getting fast. There is broadband, there wasn't. There's faster machines, so a lot of things are speeding up, so which is good and bad, because there's also a tendency then to sort of not worry about the optimization so much, whereas that sort of, it got left behind almost a bit, where it was a very big thing. So now you've got these sites where every time someone wants to load something, say they get stuff from the database, like for a blog post that might not change for 10 years, it's the same blog post, but every time someone requests it, goes to the database, gets the blog post, gets the menu, puts it all together, sends it out. And that's a lot of work, that's a lot of duplication there that doesn't need to be done. So they've also got WYSIWYG editors, which are brilliant, the client thinks. We can change our website, we can add in pictures of cats everywhere, all over the place, but then they've managed the design. It's a content management system, not a design management system. And it's, to me, they should manage the content, not the design. The design should be that, because there's no point paying someone professional to design your website for then you to go and well, the client to then go and change it all because they can. Ooh, too far. So the use of CMS can potentially be bad for a developer because they can have their hands tied. There's a lot of things that they might not be able to do because they're restricted by what the platform they're actually using. And the users themselves also going to lose out here because they've got a lot of added bloat over to what they're actually doing. So they might try and load a simple page, but there's a lot of extra stuff that comes with that. They've got 5 different libraries to do one simple thing because that's the way that it's been done there. So now we've got JAMstacks, which are JavaScript, APIs, and markup stack. So the main things with a JAMstack site is that the whole thing lives within. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So everything's served from a CDN. So it's nice. It's super fast. It's distributed everywhere. So wherever you are, it's always going to be fast, and it's always going to be good. And another main thing is that everything should be within a Git repository. So as a new developer, if you come to work on a project, you can clone that project, install any dependencies, and then you're good to go. There's no database complex setups or environment setup to worry about. You haven't got to worry about any of those things. It's just a simple workflow, and you're quite quick to get up and running. It's largely, can't work your clicker. It's largely become available through sort of the rise of Node, and the sort of the whole ecosystem around Node has made it a lot more possible for this to happen with the build tools that are available. Especially with things like Babel, so you can use proper, well, tomorrow's sort of standards, and you can use them today. So things like ES6 and stuff, you can just tell it what version you want to send to the browser, and it sends it down, and you don't have to worry about that then. But because of the popularity with Node and NPM and stuff, there is a tendency that it is moving really fast, and things are quite often out of date quite quick. So when you've learnt one thing, it can be out of date next week. But that's just the nature of the way things go, I think. They might be thinking that this is just static sites. The clients are going to need to change things if you've created a site here. And they do. And that's where I have content as a service. So you're not locked into the service that you're using, because I mean your content could end up on, it could be on a TV system, it could be on a native app, it could even end up in someone's car computer or anywhere. It could be used in all different places if it's not locked down to being in a sort of HTML stored in a database somewhere. It's not got much other use apart from one. Whereas if you use, we use Contentful quite a lot, and they store your data for you. That's a service you don't have to worry about. You don't have to manage that then. It's done for you. So we come to tools that make this possible. We use NetDefi, which is a hosting which specialises in CDNs of static hosting. And they provide you with build hooks. So whenever your contentful content is changed, you can then tell it to automatically call a build hook on NetDefi, which then will automatically build a site and deploy it. Or similarly, if you've got your continuous delivery pipeline, which we've got on one of the projects we're working on upstairs, is hosted on GitLab, which then pipes off to Jenkins to run all the build tools, all the unit tests and integration tests. And when that passes, which it should do, it then calls to NetDefi to say to build the project, which builds all the project, pulls in all the stuff from wherever it needs, and deploys across its network. So isomorphic JavaScript is just JavaScript that runs either the same JavaScript on the server side or on the client side. So this could be from anywhere from sort of a React or Angular app with pre-rendering on a Node server to something I've been working on, a couple for one for a friend and one for a client here as well, is a sort of single page app which is also pre-built on the build step. So we've got all the pre-built templates going through which is included in the HTML. So the page changes are nice and snappy. For this one, we've used an approach which was used, I think the guy's Phil Hawksworth, it's Comedy in the Crown is what site it's called. There's a talk on JAMstack Radio about it, and because there's a lot of frameworks out there, but again, it's quite likely to sort of have to do things a framework where it wants you to do it. So I've actually used a mixture of Gulp to do task running and Contentful to load all the data in. So you can pull all the data in through Contentful and stash it all locally, format it as it's needed, and it's there. Because if it's done that way as well for local development, you don't need to keep getting the data each time. You've just got it where you need it. Another sort of pet hate of mine is jQuery and the use of it. I just don't think it's needed anymore. I think it's something that's came from a time when sort of browsers were all trying to fight their own way. And it was a time when there wasn't much standards between any of them. Then these days it's something I don't feel it's very needed, especially with CSS animations and transitions. It's most of the stuff that used to be done with jQuery is usable in other ways and probably a faster one. So just recap on the isomorphic rendering stuff. We've got a website that is pre-rendered on NetDefi with build steps that builds every single page as a static page, and it's also got in the browser sort of pre-compiled templates to switch from page to page, which makes it super fast. We've actually, I'm not sure how many people use page speed insights from the Google one, because it determines a lot of the SEO stuff these days on page speed as well. We've actually managed, the latest one has got 100% on page insight speed, which is quite a lot faster than any other sites I've tested on there. I think most sites seem to get around sort of 45 to 65. So it seems to work quite well. Okay, there's some links to a few bits that I was mentioning. I don't know if anyone's got any questions at all.
How long is the build step if you pull in all the content in from different APIs when you're stitching together?
At the moment, we've got one that's it's got just stuff coming from Contentful, and then it's got image minification stuff on the fly as well, and that's about 20 seconds because it caches all the NPM stuff as well. Yeah. So if you change stuff there, I think it has to rebuild all the dependency, obviously. But yeah, on the whole, it's pretty quick.
So it just goes into dependency node.
Yeah, NetDefi sort of takes care of all of that. It caches it. You can tell it which node version your project depends on as well, and then yeah, so it knows which version it is. All your NPM stuff's cached.
With the page
service works to get the speeds that you were on agent sites?
No, I haven't done any for that. At the moment, the ones that's on is sort of a brochure site with nice transitions on the page.
Is it using Naval.js in your toolkit now?
Yes, some. Yeah, in some of them, yeah. Yeah, try and write everything in ES6, because otherwise you flip from one to the other all the time. It's suddenly like, which land am I in now? Because we've also moved to try and do a lot of our back-end code in JavaScript as well, which is all ES6 stuff as well, keeps it all on the same page. We're using a lot of AWS stuff, so we've got AWS Lambda functions to do stuff in their database stuff as well. So that means you can do JavaScript everywhere, which is awesome. Yeah.
Are there any projects that you this wouldn't be appropriate? I've not hit one yet.
Probably. There's probably lots, yeah. Yeah, they're all, I don't know, projects are different every time, aren't they?
How would you consider the balance of sites that you've done here, you showed here? How server heavy or client heavy do you feel that those particular sites or particular context? So is it the case that if it's more server or in server context, then it would be not updated as often? And so doing the rebuilds or regenerating the static site make more sense, but if it's more dynamic, that make it not as feasible.
Potentially, but I had to think about this before of how much content needs to be dynamic. I mean, how many times is it different for you or me looking at a website? Are we going to get different content? Because unless it's something where you're an actual application where you're logged in, that's the point where it's going to be quite different. But most of the time, if it's sort of more of a information site or even a shop, it doesn't need to be dynamic. The only part of a shop that needs to be dynamic is the and the stock amount as well, because that's part of the change. But the actual products themselves, they might change. If they change a lot, they might change once a week. Yeah, because there's quite a few tools on that as well. Because I quite like the idea of doing a static shop. I think it's Snipcart I've looked at, which is basically a JavaScript checkout.